Welcome back to the quarterly call. All content is for informational purposes and is not investment advice. Please consult with an investment professional. All right, you ready to jump into Alibaba?
Let's do it.
So we got a request to dig into their December quarter two 2024 earnings call. And
Yeah,
I went through it and I feel like
that's a lot.
there's a lot to unpack here, and I think it's a really interesting snapshot of where they're at.
Yeah,
We talk a lot about kind of the Chinese market, the macro, all that stuff.
right.
But let's kind of look at what's happening.
With a specific company.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like a microcosm of what's happening in the macro. Like
Wow.
all of these trends that we're seeing with AI and the cloud and even e-commerce, like we can see that reflected in the decisions that Alibaba's making.
Right. And they're a massive company.
Huge. Yeah.
And their strategy is a huge signal, I think,
Right.
to the entire market.
And, I think one of the things that stuck out to me was just this like
Yeah.
laser focus that they've got right now on AI and cloud. It seems like they're, going all in on that.
Yeah.
Um, but at the same time, they're not abandoning their e-commerce roots,
Right. I
They're
feel
still
that they're divesting away
yeah,
from the brick and mortar.
exactly. They're getting rid of all the offline stuff like the Sun Art and In Time and
Yeah.
focusing on what they do best, which is
Right.
core digital stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what are their core strategies right now?
Yeah, so I think the big one, like you said, was the user-first AI-driven. Like
Yeah.
that was a big theme that kept coming up.
Yeah, user first, AI driven. I mean, that's really their mantra now, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because it's not just like lip service. They're actually putting their money where their mouth is, you know?
Right. And we see that reflected in their financials.
Right. And I also think it's interesting, like you said, they're very clearly doubling down on their strengths, right?
Yeah.
Like they're shedding a lot of the stuff that's not their core competency
Mm-hmm.
and focusing on the stuff where they have a real advantage.
And not just focusing on it, but like
Yeah.
investing heavily in it.
Right.
Like they're talking about some pretty significant investments in their cloud infrastructure and AI development.
Right. So overall strategy, user first, AI driven,
Yeah.
focus on e-commerce, AI, and the cloud,
Mm-hmm.
and really emphasizing strong business fundamentals
Right.
and profit generating capability.
Exactly. They're not just trying to grow at all costs.
Yeah.
They're trying to be smart about it and make sure that the growth is sustainable and profitable.
Right. Okay. So AI and cloud.
Okay, let's dive into that.
This is. I mean, it seemed like this was like the main theme.
The centerpiece.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think is the most exciting part of the call, honestly. So we saw some pretty impressive numbers. Their revenue, excluding Alibaba, consolidated subsidiaries, grew by 11% year over year.
Yeah. And it was interesting to see like kind of how that breaks down, right?
Right.
Because they're saying, okay, here's our total revenue.
Right.
But here's the revenue that's coming specifically from like the AI products and things like that.
Exactly. And that's where the real excitement is, right? Because their AI-related product revenue has maintained triple-digit year-over-year growth for 6 consecutive quarters.
Yeah.
6 quarters in a row.
Yeah. I mean, that's wild.
It's pretty remarkable. And it shows that this is not just like a flash in the pan,
Right.
Like this is a sustained trend. And it's really driven by customer demand.
Yeah.
Like customers are really seeing the value of AI and they're flocking to Alibaba Cloud to get their hands on it.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting how that like plays into their overall cloud strategy, right? Because
It's almost like AI is becoming the killer app for the cloud.
yeah.
Like it's the thing that's driving people to adopt cloud services
Yeah.
in a way that we haven't really seen before.
Yeah, because it's not just like you were saying, it's not just about storage and computing power anymore. It's
Right.
like it's about providing
It's about providing the infrastructure for AI,
yeah.
the platform, the tools, the everything that people need to build and deploy AI applications.
Right. And they're really pushing their own AI foundation model, right?
Right, the Quinn 2.5 Max.
Yeah, which they're saying is like industry leading in terms of capabilities.
Yeah, they're making some pretty bold claims about it, but they're backing it up with some actual benchmarks and data, you know.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see how many people are building on top of that already, right?
Yeah, like they've got over 90,000 derivative models that have been developed globally based on Quen,
Right.
and over 290,000 companies and developers
Yeah.
have accessed Quen APIs via the Balian platform.
Yeah.
So it's clearly gaining traction in the developer community.
Yeah. So I mean, that's a pretty big ecosystem that they're building around this.
Yeah.
But it sounds like they're not they're not done yet, right?
No, no, they're not resting on their laurels. They're already talking about releasing a deep reasoning model
Right.
based on Quen 2.5 Max.
Mm.
So they're constantly pushing the envelope, trying to make their AI even more powerful and sophisticated.
Yeah, and so to kind of support all this, like, this big push into AI and cloud, they're they're talking about investing a lot of money.
A ton of money.
Yeah.
They're talking about a significant investment in their cloud and AI infrastructure over the next 3 years.
Yeah.
And what's really, really eye-opening is that this investment is projected to exceed their total investment in these areas over the past decade.
Right. That's a huge number.
That's a massive commitment.
Yeah.
It really shows that they're serious about this.
Yeah.
They're not just dipping their toes in the water, they're diving in head first.
Right. And so where is all that money going?
So they've kind of laid out three main areas of focus for this investment.
Okay.
First is the core infrastructure,
Hmm.
right? So, that's the servers, the data centers,
Right.
all the hardware and software that powers their cloud and AI operations.
Right.
Second is AI foundation models and AI native applications.
Mm-hmm.
So that's continuing to develop Quen
Right.
and other models like it, but also building new applications that are specifically designed
Yeah.
to take advantage of AI capabilities.
Okay. So like applications that just wouldn't be possible without this
Yeah.
kind of AI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then third is integrating AI into their existing businesses.
Yeah.
So, that's things like Taobao, like their search engine, like all the different applications that they already have. They want to make those smarter
Right.
and more efficient by integrating AI into them.
Right. So kind of like AI everywhere.
AI everywhere
Sure.
approach.
Yeah, it's really a holistic strategy.
Yeah.
They're not just focusing on one aspect of AI. They're looking at the big picture and how they can use AI to transform their entire business. So I think the question is like, what is the end goal here?
Yeah, like why are they doing all this?
Right.
Right? Are they trying to just incrementally improve their existing products and services, or are they aiming for something bigger, something more transformative?
I think they're aiming for something much bigger.
Yeah.
They've actually stated that their primary objective is the pursuit of AGI, artificial general intelligence.
So basically building machines that can think.
Essentially, yeah. Like humans.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is obviously a very ambitious goal.
Yeah.
Some people might even say it's a bit far-fetched.
Yeah.
But Alibaba clearly believes that AGI is possible.
Right.
And that it has the potential to revolutionize the world.
Yeah, I mean, if they can pull it off, it would be huge.
It would be absolutely transformative.
Yeah.
They talk about how AGI could lead to a new era of economic growth.
Right.
Could solve some of the world's most pressing problems.
Okay.
So it's a very ambitious vision, but it's also a very exciting one.
Yeah.
And I think it really speaks to the kind of company that Alibaba wants to be.
Right.
They want to be a company that's pushing the boundaries of technology and making a real difference in the world.
Right.
So how do they plan to achieve this? Well, they're betting big on the deep integration of cloud and AI.
Right.
They believe that by bringing these two technologies together, they can create a truly powerful platform for AI innovation.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting how they're almost positioning themselves as like a central nervous system for AI.
Yeah, it's like Alibaba Cloud is going to be the brain,
Yeah.
and then all these different AI applications are going to be the limbs,
Right. Yeah, so the cloud is the platform.
The cloud is the platform.
And then they're delivering AI through that platform.
Exactly.
And it's not just about, like external customers, right?
Right.
They're talking about integrating AI across their entire ecosystem.
Yeah, they want to use AI to make their own businesses more efficient, more effective,
Right.
So, we talked about Taobao, but also their search engine, Quark, their enterprise collaboration platform, DingTalk, their mapping and navigation service, AMAP.
Right.
They want to integrate AI into all of these things.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting how they're emphasizing the user experience. Right, they're saying, okay, we want to use AI to make our products and services better for our users.
Right, to make them more personalized, more relevant, more engaging.
Right.
But at the same time, they're also focused on using AI to improve their own internal operations.
Right.
So it's really a win-win situation.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about e-commerce because that's obviously like their bread and butter.
Right, their foundation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Taobao and Tmall are still going strong.
Yeah, and they're investing in growth.
Yeah, they're investing in new user growth. They're investing in user experience enhancements.
Right.
And it seems to be paying off. They reported strong growth in new consumers.
Right.
And in orders.
Yeah.
Their core consumer group, the 88 VIP members,
Yeah.
reached 49 million.
Wow.
With double-digit growth.
That's a lot of people.
That's a huge number. And their monetization efforts are also paying off.
Yeah.
Their CNR, customer management revenue, grew by 9% year over year.
Yeah, and it's interesting how they're doing that, right?
Right.
Because they're implementing new software service fees, and they're seeing increased adoption of that Kwanzan TUI tool, which helps merchants with their marketing.
Right. It's a tool that helps merchants optimize their marketing and promotional efforts.
Right.
So it's a win-win for Alibaba and for the merchants.
Right.
And they're also really focused on creating a better environment for merchants.
Yeah.
They're talking about strengthening merchant-friendly measures.
Right.
Trying to make it easier for merchants to do business.
Right.
On their platforms.
Yeah, and I think that's smart because, if the merchants aren't happy, then ultimately the platform's going to suffer.
Exactly.
Right. Okay, so international e-commerce.
So their international e-commerce business, ADC, is also doing really well.
Yeah, they're still seeing strong growth.
Yeah, they're maintaining strong growth driven by their cross-border businesses.
Right.
And they're also seeing improved operating efficiency.
Yeah.
Which is really important, because international expansion can be very expensive.
Right.
And it can be hard to make it profitable.
Right.
But they're making progress there.
Yeah, and it's interesting, like they're still investing in key international markets.
Yeah.
They mentioned like Choice and how the unit economics are improving there.
Yeah. So Choice is their kind of curated selection of products.
Right.
That they're offering in certain international markets.
Right.
And they're seeing good traction with that.
Yeah.
And they're actually expecting ADC to become profitable in the next fiscal year.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
That's a major milestone.
Yeah.
So, it shows that their international strategy is starting to really bear fruit.
Right.
Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the overall financials.
Yeah, I think it's always helpful to look at the big picture.
Yeah, absolutely.
So total consolidated revenue, they increased by 8% to 280.2 billion RMB.
Which is a pretty healthy growth rate.
Yeah.
For a company of their size.
Yeah.
Their consolidated adjusted EBITDA increased by 4% to 54.9 billion RMB.
And that was driven by revenue growth and efficiency.
Exactly. So they're growing their top line.
Yeah.
But they're also becoming more efficient in how they operate.
Right.
Which is a good sign.
Yeah. Okay, so non-GAAP net income increased by 6% to 51.1 billion RMB.
And their GAAP net income increased significantly by 333% to 46.4 billion RMB.
Yeah, that's a big jump.
Yeah. And that was largely due to improved income from operations.
Right.
But also some positive changes in the valuation of their equity investments.
Okay, so that's not necessarily like,
It's not all operational.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so operating cash flow?
Operating cash flow increased by 10%.
Okay.
To 70.9 billion RMB.
And free cash flow?
So free cash flow actually decreased.
Okay.
And that's mainly due to their investments in cloud infrastructure.
Right. So they're spending a lot of money on building out that infrastructure to support their AI and cloud ambitions.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's a good thing in the long run,
Yeah.
but it does impact their free cash flow in the short term.
Right.
But overall, they still have a very strong net cash position
Yeah.
of 378.5 billion RMB.
Which is a lot of money.
Yeah, no, it's about 51.9 billion US dollars.
Yeah, so I mean they're in a good position to kind of weather any storms
Yep,
and continue to invest in their growth.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's break down the financials by segment a little bit.
Okay.
So Taobao and Tmall Group, they saw a 5% increase in revenue.
Mm-hmm.
CMR was up 9%.
Yep.
Adjusted EBITDA increased by 2%.
And that's despite the fact that they're investing in user experience improvements.
Right.
So, they're growing their profitability
Right.
even as they're spending money to make
Right.
their platform better.
Right. Okay, so ADC.
ADC grew revenue by 32%,
That's huge.
which is, it's a really impressive growth rate.
Yeah.
International commerce retail was up 36%,
Okay.
and wholesale was up 18%.
Wow.
So they're seeing strong growth across the board in their international business.
Yeah.
They did have an adjusted EBITDA loss,
Right.
but that's due to their investment
Right.
in expanding their global footprint.
Right. Okay, so Cloud Intelligence Group.
Cloud Intelligence Group, revenue grew by 13%.
Okay.
Public cloud, which includes AI products,
Right.
showed double-digit growth.
Okay.
And their adjusted EBITDA increased by 33%.
Wow.
So they're really starting to see the benefits of their investments
Right.
in cloud and AI.
Right, and that product mix and efficiency, but also offset by some of the investments.
Exactly. So they're being smart about how they're allocating their resources.
Right. Okay, so Kanyo.
So Kaneo revenue decreased by 1%,
Okay.
and they had a significant drop in adjusted EBITDA.
Okay, and they're blaming that on restructuring.
Yeah, they're going through some restructuring
Right.
in their e-commerce logistics network.
Okay.
So that's having a bit of a short-term impact on their financials.
Right. Okay, so Local Services Group.
Local Services Group revenue grew by 12%,
Okay.
and they had a significantly narrowed EBITDA loss
Yeah.
thanks to improved efficiency and scale.
Right.
And EMAP actually achieved profitability.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's a good sign.
Yeah, that's a major milestone for them.
Mm-hmm.
So their local services business is really starting to turn a corner.
Right. Okay, so Digital Media and Entertainment Group.
Digital Media and Entertainment Group revenue grew by 8%,
Okay.
and they also had a narrowing EBITDA loss.
Okay. And their All Others segment.
So the all other segment revenue increased by 13%,
Yeah, okay.
but they still had an EBITDA loss.
Okay. And what is the All Others segment?
So that's basically all the businesses that don't fit into the other categories.
Okay.
So it's kind of like a catch-all category,
Right.
but it's still a significant part of their business.
Yeah. Okay. So we talked about how they're divesting from some of those non-core assets.
Right. So Sun Art and In Time, they're selling their stakes in those businesses
Right.
for up to $2.6 billion US dollars.
And they're saying that's going to impact their March quarter financials.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the goal here is to really improve their efficiency and agility
Right.
by focusing on their core businesses.
Right. And then share buybacks.
So they repurchased $1.3 billion worth of shares in the quarter,
Okay.
bringing the 9-month total to approximately $11 billion,
Wow.
which is a pretty significant amount of money.
Yeah.
And that represents about a 5% net reduction
Okay.
in their share count.
Okay.
And they also issued some bonds to
Right.
lower their financing costs.
Oh, okay.
So they're taking steps to kind of optimize their capital structure.
Right. So it sounds like, they're really focused on creating value for their shareholders.
Yeah, absolutely. They're returning capital to shareholders through buybacks.
Mm-hmm.
They're investing in growth.
Yeah.
They're improving their efficiency.
Right.
So they're doing a lot of the right things.
Yeah. Okay. So future outlook, what are they saying?
So they're very confident in their strategy.
Okay.
They're expecting continued acceleration
Right.
in Cloud Intelligence Group revenue growth.
Okay. And they're targeting profitability
Yes.
for most of their loss-making businesses?
Within the next 1 to 2 years.
Wow. So they're really putting a stake in the ground there.
Yeah, they're setting a pretty aggressive goal,
Yeah.
but they're also confident that they can achieve it.
Right.
Um, and they're committed to balancing growth with financial discipline
Right.
and enhanced operating efficiency.
Yeah, and they're still kind of evaluating the positioning of those other assets.
Right. So Freshippo, Youku, and at least May,
Right.
they're still kind of figuring out what to do with those.
Right.
Um, but they're focused on their core businesses, and they're open to strategic partnerships
Right.
to enhance value.
And no plans to sell Freshippo right now.
Right.
Okay.
So, they're keeping their options open,
Yeah.
but they're not in any rush to make any big moves.
Right. And I thought it was interesting what they said about the commoditization of AI intelligence.
Yeah, so they're basically saying that as AI becomes more accessible,
Mm-hmm.
even if the foundational models become more standardized,
Right.
that's actually going to create more opportunities for cloud computing networks.
Right, because everyone's going to need the infrastructure to run those models.
Right. They made an analogy to the power grid.
Right. Yeah.
Like as electricity became more widely available,
Yeah.
that created a huge demand for power grids
Right.
to distribute that electricity.
Right. To deliver it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're saying that the same thing's going to happen with AI. Like as AI becomes more widely available,
Right.
There's going to be a huge demand for cloud infrastructure
Yeah.
to deliver that AI.
Right. And then we talked about, how they see all these opportunities for AI native applications within their own ecosystem.
Right. So Taobao, Quark, DingTalk, AMAP, they're all going to be enhanced by AI.
Right.
And they're also seeing a big opportunity in inference workloads.
Right. So basically using AI to make predictions and decisions based on data.
Yeah. And they're saying that this is going to drive a rapid expansion of their AI customer base.
Right.
And ultimately improve their profit margins.
Okay.
Well, although they did acknowledge that the infrastructure investments are going to have an impact on their margins in the short term.
Right, but they're playing the long game here.
Yeah, absolutely. They're willing to invest now to reap the rewards later. And they also talked about how the cloud computing market in China is different from the global market.
Right.
And they're not expecting to see the same kind of profit margins as some of their global peers.
Okay. And shareholder returns?
So they're committed to returning value to shareholders through dividends, share buybacks, and investments in high-growth businesses.
Right.
They said that they're taking the company's share price into account when they make decisions about buybacks.
Okay.
Which is a good sign.
Yeah.